Welcome to the world of Arcadia, the world's most plausible virtual reality game. A fantasy RPG with a brand new world to explore, monsters to fight, adventures to have, hey, do those slimes look more dangerous than before? I play a lot of video games. It's my go-to when I'm not reading Webtoon series. And the culmination of that video game addiction is video game Webtoon series. Because Webtoon video games don't exist. Yet. I've talked about this before, mainly focusing on The Strongest Florist, but during that video, I was talking very briefly on a brand new series that didn't have enough to make a full video on. But a couple weeks later, and oh boy, here we are. And I'm actually really excited to show you guys where it's been going, with slimes, players, in-game events, hidden classes, and Satan somehow. But alas, I am getting ahead of myself. Let me introduce you to World's Strongest Troll. Again. Our story takes place in the world of gaming. How many times do you think I can make that joke? Anywho, we follow the gamer with many different names. Dan, Solo Play Dan, Player D, QWERTY123, Temporary Account 12, Handy Left Hand, DDD12, Dan Blama, and more. I'm not reading all those, you can do that. His real name is Jaeyeon Yu, but his current ID is Dex, which is slightly easier. Dex is an interesting gamer, and by interesting, I mean wildly confusing. Dex's life revolves around speed running his way to the top of the leaderboards, humiliating those at the top, and then deleting his account and moving on to the next world to conquer. This is how we start the series, actually, with him 1v5ing the top 5 players in a PC game, beating them with relative ease, and then retiring, i.e. deleting his account, which is crazy to me. It was mainly to switch into the new game Arcadia, the capsule VR game, to, of course, become the best at the game. Dex's skill comes not from his talent or his hard work, of course he has both of those, but it instead comes from his experience. Dex has played a lot of games. All those usernames aren't just for show, those are basically games he's conquered and then abandoned. It's kind of the premise of the series. And the reason this stands out is because he knows how games work. Not in terms of coding or that very, very complicated stuff that I have wildly respect for anyone who even attempts to do, but more in terms of structure, why and how games work and function in terms of actually playing the game. This is presented by his skill at level 1, but it's more important with his completion of quests. Like any good MMORPG, there are starter quests. Killing slimes is the first one, obviously, but the second one raises some questions. That being, read 100 books. Look, I barely read a book. You want me to read 100 of them in a video game? It seems like most players had that same mentality. According to NPCs, most flipped through the books as it counted as reading, because how could a video game see that you're actually looking at each word individually? But this is why Dex stands out as much as he does. Yes, he already has talent in-game, but he sits down and reads books for days. Talk about dedication. But one book stands out, The History of Arcadia, but specifically the second volume, considered a rare book and only given when requested. The sequel to History, History 2. Now, most players haven't even heard of this book, much less even looked at it or read it. The only reason Dex was able to find it was because he actually read the book. And the book talks about a legendary explorer that hid a legendary item in a lake near Eldon, wherever that is. Not much is known about the treasure, except that it is the oldest trace of darkness, which is a wild thing for a treasure to be, but cool. On a whim, he goes to this lake and a new quest is triggered, an incredibly high-ranking quest at that, a level B+ rank, which seems low, but even the highest level raid quest, i.e. multiple high-ranking players working together, usually only goes as high as C. So yeah, B+ is pretty high. Way to screw up the curve, Dex. Anyways, after spending what I assume more days diving underwater, he finally gets his hand on the oldest trace of darkness. A necklace, the Necklace of Dark Light. A necklace that the game kinda doesn't want you to equip. It gives him like 10 different opportunities to not wear the necklace. Like a video game that didn't expect you to say no to, hey, you wanna go and save the world? Oh, are you sure you don't wanna go save the world? Really think about not saving the world. The system even calls him out on this, saying, you're just pressing without thinking, right? I know. That's kind of creepy. It even says it's looking forward to seeing Dex screw up to the best of his ability, just like he is doing now, which is a very confusing thing for a system to say. And it's even more confusing when we see that it isn't just a system saying that. We see that someone is actually behind the system telling him this. But whatever that entirely very creepy entity is, Dex gets a hidden class, the Bard of Anarchy, removing the standard level up system, permanently bounding this class to Dex, adding a new stat, and a new quest is triggered for him specifically, that he has 7 days to kill as many beginner players as possible. And yeah, he goes and does that, killing multiple newbies, even gaining a notorious reputation on the official online boards, and the players gather together to fight back. Which is where we need to talk about two main things: plausibility and Arcadia. Arcadia is an incredibly complex game, not just because it's a VR game you play while either asleep or knocked out or in a coma. I don't know how these capsule games work, I will never know, but Arcadia is much more complicated than that. It's run by AI, unfortunately. One named Alice. Alice seems to be more than just AI, but that's not what the point is. Arcadia adapts around the world the players creates. So when a group of players gather together to fight back against this mysterious newbie killer, Alice, the AI, creates a new quest to capture this mysterious killer. Arcadia is much more than just a video game. It adapts, it changes, it grows and evolves alongside these players, which is the dream. A game that we can actually be in and play that changes alongside our actions. But equally important in this video is plausibility. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that Arcadia is the world's most plausible virtual reality game, which is a weird way to describe a video game, right? And yeah, it really is, but I didn't write that. It's actually lifted directly from the series description. It is a very weird way to describe a video game, but that's because plausibility is the key to the entire series. Plausibility in this series is not the quality of seeming reasonable or probable, which is the dictionary definition. It is instead given its own unique definition in the world of Arcadia. It can increase the ability to intervene in this world. The user can artificially distort the laws of the world using the stats. The stats are permanently destroyed after the use. I mentioned the new class, the Bard of Anarchy, gets rid of the classic level up system and gives Dex a new stat. That new stat being plausibility. Plausibility is gained whenever he kills a newbie, and he gains a lot of plausibility, gaining thousands of it. But as an interesting side effect, the more players he saves, the less monsters being killed, since there's a death penalty in the game. When you die in game, you have a 24-hour period where you can't play, which is insane. I can't imagine dying and not playing for 24 hours, but whatever. Less slimes are being killed because of it, and since Dex doesn't get any levels, he doesn't kill monsters either. But the slimes notice that he doesn't fight them, and this is where things get really cool actually, because the slimes kind of start to ally themselves with Dex, especially when one is being chased by a player and he stands up for it, mainly by tricking everyone else to believe that the person chasing the slime was the newbie killer, and that act wins him the title of Slime Chum, which is funny. But he also reaches the maximum affinity with these slimes, which is actually the final step of what plausibility is actually used for, and boy oh boy, the anarchy in Bard of Anarchy is absolutely right. He can create a partnership with the Slime Clan and use plausibility to help them. Remember what plausibility does. It can increase the ability to intervene in this world. The user can artificially distort the laws of this world using the stats. Like, maybe, I don't know, causing a level 1 slime that beginners fight to become a level 15 slime. Yeah, maybe that. This causes the beginning areas of the game to be way too hard for beginners. These slimes can one-shot level 1 players, and the slime's kills count towards Dex's kills, eventually gaining 10,000 plausibility, gaining the in-game title of Newbie Killer, and also getting a reward. A familiar, actually. Satan! Yeah, it's a lot. Satan's new form is partially incomplete, so he looks young and small. But Satan, which is a very weird thing to say out loud, can actually use plausibility more effectively, using a whole lot to make a level 100 queen slime. Don't look in the comments. Causing another quest to activate. Players have 7 days to defend the Guardian Stone in the beginning village, and if they fail, the same beginning village will be destroyed forever. Which leads Dex to ask an interesting question. Which side does he pick? Does he pick the users or the monsters? Of course, he picks the monsters. The whole Bard of Anarchy thing is very chaotic and very cool, but this raises another really cool thought. I wanted to title this video something along the lines of becoming the villain or something like that, but it got me thinking, I don't really consider Dex to be a villain. Yeah, he sides with the monsters and not humanity, but I consider players to be equally in the wrong. Players kill because the system demands it. Dex kills because the system demands it. Sure, players kill monsters and Dex kills players, but slimes are considered passive monsters. Monsters that won't fight until they're attacked. All Dex did was save them and give them the power to fight back. It honestly reminds me a lot of Just a Goblin, a series about the world of adventurers, but more focuses on the monsters the adventurers fight. But in the world's strongest troll, it's the fellow adventurer fighting alongside said monsters. This isn't a villain arc. Instead, this is a chaos arc, which is honestly just as fun. There's no right or wrong side in this world. In fact, if there is a wrong side, I'd say it's the ones killing the adorable slimes, but it's just Dex choosing a side that isn't typically seen. The monsters that we fight and kill are given a spotlight through Dex, creating a really interesting story where the main character fights alongside the monsters. But it's also part of the charm of World's Strongest Troll. Like I said, plausibility, the ability to affect or distort the laws of the world. A lot of the series kind of points to you create your story. The players create their own story. Dex creates his own story. It goes a lot in this idea of choice, that we all have an ability to influence the world. And it's a really cool thought process, because in so many series with fantasy that the heroes defend themselves against the evil monsters, it's really funny to see a different choice. And the series has a lot of mystery to it as well. Where the heck does this necklace come from? Who is that figure that talked to Dex through the system? How does plausibility work? Who's Alice? Is she just an AI? It sure doesn't seem like it. There's a lot to enjoy in the series. The mystery, the monsters, the interesting themes of change and choice that any fantasy webtoon reader should be really into. So make sure to check out World's Strongest Troll, updating every week on Webtoon.